Okay.
Hey, Coachy.
Hi.
How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So yesterday I got to sit in on your comprehension reading lesson.
Yes.
And when we met in our pre-conference, you told me you wanted me to look at your timing for the before, during, and after, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit how you think your comprehension lesson went as a whole.
In general, I think it went well because she was able to accomplish filling in that chart at the end mostly by herself. She needed a little prompting and assistance, but she was able to complete it, so I found that successful.
Okay. You said when she was filling in the chart, which chart?
There was a big anchor chart on the board that she was excited to fill in about the book that I read aloud to her.
Okay. And what was your focus for the lesson? What was your goal or your objective?
The focus was for the student to be able to summarize a new story using the somebody wanted but so then strategy.
Okay. And do you feel that your student met that objective?
Yes.
Okay. So, let me think. So, in what way can you say that your student met that objective? Let me rephrase. So, what evidence do you have to show that your student met that objective?
Well, I read the story aloud to her to save time there because I wanted her to be able to think about it and process the different parts that we would be answering after. So I read it aloud.
Are you talking about your read aloud?
Yes.
The Officer Buckle and Gloria, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I read Officer Buckle and Gloria aloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that she was focused, she was paying attention, she was reacting to the events in the story, so I could tell that she was listening to it.
Okay.
And after I finished reading, we looked back at the anchor chart that we had started together with the somebody wanted but so then parts listed.
Okay.
And we were able to go step by step through the process of her pulling out those parts of the book that she remembered in order to put it up correctly on the chart to summarize it.
Okay, so you said when you were reading the story aloud, you knew that she was following along because was she answering questions for you, or she maybe just like some head nods?
It was mostly body language and just
Okay.
the fact that her focus was on the story, reacting to what was happening in the story by what I was reading out loud. And there were, I think, 2 or 3 spots maybe where I stopped and thought something aloud to show her how I was getting that information. And I think toward the end I asked her 1 or 2 questions about it, but I wanted her... My focus wasn't on the questions while I was reading, so I didn't do too many.
And now this story she wasn't familiar with the story, because I know you started your lesson to model and kind of do some guided practice with a story that was familiar with her.
Yes.
You used the story Cinderella.
Yes.
So using a story that was familiar to her helped her kind of understand the task or what was expected of her.
Yes. She was able to retell the Cinderella story with like all the elements, I guess, that we were looking for, but I wanted her to be able to summarize it more concisely without all those details, so I was just helping her see that she kind of already knew the story, already knew all the parts, but I was helping her organize them better. So that's why we started with Cinderella instead of reading 2 new books, one to model, one to practice.
So when you said you wanted her to focus on the story elements, can you just clarify what you mean or what you were looking for when you said story elements?
I just mean those 5 parts of the summarizing strategy we were working on.
Which were the...
Somebody wanted, but so then.
So then for the during part of the lesson, you read the story aloud. It was a cold read. How do you feel like she did then? How do you feel like she did during the cold read and being able to complete the anchor chart?
I was impressed by what she was able to do because she had never heard that story before. I only read it aloud the one time. She popped right up to go up to the board to be able to write on the anchor chart. And when I referred to her Cinderella story with the parts, so for example, we started with somebody, and she knew in the first one Cinderella off the top of her head, so when we started with the character of the cold read, she was able to remember that. And I just walked her through step by step, and we talked about it out loud, so she knew the character right away. The wanted, in the story, the officer just wanted kids to listen to him and his safety tips. So by talking through the parts of the story that she remembered, I could just show her how to organize them into those the parts on the chart.
Okay. So looking at, so you had a chance to look at the data that I collected for you.
Yes.
I was timing the portion of the before reading, so I started the timer when you started the lesson, and then I stopped the timer and noted the time, and then in your during part, I started the timer again, and then ended the timer, and then the same thing with the after reading. So you had a chance to look at that data?
Yes.
So, what were your thoughts on the data that you saw? Like, how did you feel that the lesson went? What were your expectations?
Well, one of the reasons I asked you to time it was because I was afraid that I was spending too much time modeling in the beginning and not giving her enough time when it came time to apply it with the cold read that I had read aloud. So I wanted to make sure that there was a balance across the lesson. With you timing the different parts, I saw that in the before the reading section, the time when we were talking about Cinderella and showing her how she already knew this information, but I was helping her to kind of organize it better and turn it into more of a summary than a full retell, including all the details. That I'm trying to think. She did that part. So the before was about 8 minutes. Then the middle part, when I was reading, I wanted the focus to be on the summarizing, not just the story. So I don't think I stopped to do too many think alouds, so that we got through the whole story and had time at the end. And that was about the same amount of time. And then the most time, or the longest, I guess, period that you timed was the after reading, which made sense because she was the one who was trying to talk out loud about her ideas to organize them to put in this chart, and she was also the one recording it on the chart.
So do you feel like the most time spent should be in the after?
For that lesson, yes.
Okay.
So I was happy, I guess, to see that's where most of the time was spent because she needed most of the focus to practice that skill.
Okay, so like you said that when you wanted me to collect the data, you were, concerned that maybe you were spending too much time on the modeling or that you were talking too much. What made you think that, or, why did you feel, or was there a time that you thought that maybe the lesson was going too long? I mean, what made you consider, like, using that as your data?
I find that when I find myself talking too much, or I feel like I'm talking too much, that the student isn't doing anything in there, and I know that she's listening, but I find that I'm more confident about what she's learning when she's reading it.
Okay.
I prefer that. So the fact that I was modeling the beginning and I was reading the story to her, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking too much of the focus away, that it was on her learning the strategy.
So you just wanted me to collect the data to make sure that the focus is more on, like, student time and giving her a chance to practice the task rather than you kind of leading the whole time or modeling.
Especially because she was not reading the story, I was.
Okay, right. So based on the data that I collected, how could you use that for future lessons, do you think?
Well, now I guess I'm a little more confident in the fact that one's not taking so much longer than another section. I don't have to worry so much about what she's getting out of it if I'm reading it aloud versus her. I noticed that too, that the fact that I read it out loud, the timing, all the sections were kind of even, the before, during, and after, and that it didn't take away from her. So if I have to read aloud a story again to learn a different strategy, we can. But I also noticed that it didn't take too long when she was thinking aloud or writing it down by herself. I didn't feel the need to speed her up. So the next time, maybe I'll ask her if she can read the story to me, or ask her if she prefers to, listen to it in order to apply the strategy after. So I'm a little more confident in our time frame now.
Okay, so it sounds like that maybe in the next time to practice the strategy, you might have her try reading the story on her own and see if maybe she's able to comprehend it just as well as, as she did in listening to the story for you.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any changes that you think you might implement the next time?
Changes for the next time.
I mean, just based on the, the data.
I would be more willing to let her try the reading next time.
Okay.
To just give her a little more of the control. So I find that I'm still getting used to her age and her capabilities because I'm used to teaching students who are younger. So I'm used to things
different
being
age level
dragged
for
out.
you.
She got a lot more accomplished in that small time frame than I would be used to.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
No, not right now.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya.